anniversary of September 11, 2001. At 8:46 this morning, Flight 11 hit the North Tower, causing utter chaos and destruction. And in the South Tower, people didn't know any better. 17 minutes later, Flight 175 hit the South Tower at approximately 9:03. While we play taps, I'd like everybody to just take a moment of silence to think about what was happening at that time and remember all the loved ones that were lost. For all Americans for all time, the phrase 9/11 will evoke a special meaning, a memory of a moment in our history when the world as we knew it changed forever. It is fitting then that every year on September 11th, Americans join together to honor the memory of the more than 3,000 people that died that day. And it's fitting that we observe a moment of silence as a tribute to those lives cut short, and as a symbol of the empty places left behind in the hearts of those that are still living. But these solemn ceremonies on September 11th will always be more than a remembrance of the past, more than a tribute to the lives lost 20 years ago. These ceremonies are today and always will be a remembrance and a tribute to both the living and the dead. Today we recall and we celebrate what we learned about ourselves on September 11, 2001. We recall and we celebrate how we acted that day. We remember once again how ordinary human beings living their ordinary lives reacted with extraordinary heroism when, without warning and in an instant, they were thrown face to face with the most fundamental questions of human existence. On September 11, 2001, we saw ordinary people choose duty in the face of death, as the security guards in the Trade Center continued to help people out even as the buildings were collapsing around them. On September 11th, we saw loyalty to friends overwhelm all sense of danger, as the New York City firefighters searched tirelessly for their own. We saw ordinary people choose self-sacrifice for the good of strangers, as the passengers on the plane over Pennsylvania refused to allow the hijackers to succeed. We saw ordinary people choosing to spend their final moments expressing their love to their families. So today, as we think back on the events of 9/11, 20 years ago, our sorrow over the loss of so many good people should be tempered by the example shown by so many who died and so many who lived. They taught us through their actions that day what it means to be human. They showed us the incredible value of duty, loyalty, self-sacrifice, and love. The only way we will triumph over terrorism and conquer the senseless tragedy of that horrible day is by celebrating the kindness of the human spirit. Today, as we remember those lost, I ask you to join me in faith that the good will not only endure, but they will prevail. When thinking about that day, the topic of near misses always strikes a chord with me. I want to share with you a story that reflects a different remembrance of that day. An executive director at Morgan Stanley, Beth Epstein, rarely left her office on the 67th floor because she never had time. But 20 minutes before 9 a.m., one of her buddies called and said, "Hey, how about getting a cigarette?" He wanted to talk about an upcoming work meeting, and it was a calm day with clear blue skies, one of the most beautiful she had ever seen from her view from the World Trade Center. Epstein figured, why not? While riding down the elevator, she felt the jolt, but ignored it since the elevators have always acted strangely. When she stepped outside to light up her Benson and hedges, she saw people frozen in place, their eyes fixed to the sky. Paper rained down like chaotic confetti. As she stared at the fire and the smoke billowing from a hole in the North Tower, she wondered, how do they fix something like that? That's when a plane flew through her office in the South Tower. A cigarette break saved her life. Epstein realized later that had it not been for that rare morning break, she could have lost everything. I never took a break before noon, Epstein said. It was something that just happened that day. And thank God for it. I was safely out of the building when the plane hit. A fireball went right through my office. Everyone in my office died that day. Today she tells colleagues not to let their lives revolve around their jobs. I lived in Morgan Stanley land, she said. My life was my job until I was laid off. I worked there for almost 20 years. Everything was about your work. I didn't take vacations. Now I tell people, don't put it off. Take your vacation. Take your time with your family. Now here we are 20 years later, in a small mid-coast Maine town, talking about life lessons and remembering those who have gone before us. It's amazing to think that such a tragedy would have both a positive and negative effect on generations for years to come. We need to remember those words that Epstein spoke because they do hold a true relevance and have a powerful meaning to all of us for you today. Take time with your family, he said. At the end of the day, that's all we have. That's why we're here, having this ceremony and telling these stories. Because of family. Whether blood or not, family remembers, family cares, and family loves. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Chief Whitetalk, Chief of the Rockland Fire Department, who's going to say something.
I'm not going to follow that well. I'm just want to thank everybody for coming. Normally we'd invite everybody into the firehouse, but due to COVID, we're trying to keep it as safe as we can. One of the things that, when the 20th anniversary rolled around and you start reading all the stories and remembering everything that happened, one thing that I kind of stuck up to me was that, after the events of 9/11, our country came together and we were more united, we were more friendly, we were more personable than we ever were before. And I feel like now, 20 years later, I think we're the opposite. I don't think we've ever been more divided. So, while we remember the people we lost and the tragedies that happened, I think we should also remember how united we were. And, maybe for one day, maybe for 2 days, maybe for 365 days, we can pull that back and as a country try to move forward. So that's all I had to say. I thank everybody for coming. If anybody else wants to say anything, this is your monument, so we're glad to listen to anything that anybody has to say. And again, thank you.
Could go into a store and you would just talk with anybody in that store. We were all really together at that point. It was a feeling that I never felt before. It was a unity feeling, and that's what I always remember.
Almost 10 years ago now, we built this monument. These are all donated products. All the concrete was donated by Home Depot. All the work and the labor was done by the members of the Rockland Fire Department. The steel that holds up the World Trade Center steel was donated by Steel Pro. And we actually do luckily have a piece of World Trade Center steel graciously donated by a FDNY former chief, Mr. Tierney from Owl's Head. We do invite everybody to come up. Please look, take pictures, see what you can see. We are gracious enough to have a piece of steel from the buildings. And like the chief said, let's please remember for the next 365 that it's not just about those days that happened 20 years ago, it's about the next year going forward. I thank everyone for coming, and I hope you enjoy your day.